I'm with Dani Dayan, the former head of the Yesha Council, and of course, should we say, the diplomat of the Judea and Samaria. Dani, of course, you being here today shows that there is a difference of opinion, perhaps on a day like this when Operation Protective Edge is raging on and the South is under fire. There are different voices, but perhaps voices that are still calling for peace.
Well, first of all, I appreciate very much the fact that Haaretz invited me to speak at the peace conference. It wasn't obvious that they will, and I appreciate it very much. I think it was a courageous move by them, and I immediately accepted that. And yes, I think that in the current situation, which worries me very much, I think that our voice should be heard also in relation with how can we advance from here peacefully. I don't believe that a peace agreement is at any man's reach in the foreseeable future. But that doesn't mean necessarily that the alternative is a belligerent conflagration. We can find other ways to manage the current situation, even under the absence of peace, that are not shooting at each other.
Meaning there is a room or any kind of room for diplomacy right now, as you see it?
Well, I published a few weeks ago, both in Haaretz and in the New York Times, a plan which I call the plan for a peaceful non-reconciliation. It's non-reconciliation. I don't think that we can reconcile right now the positions of Israelis and Palestinians, of the Zionist movement and the Palestinian National Movement. But we can do it in a civilized manner, in a peaceful manner. And I strongly advocate for Israel to make bold moves in that respect, to grant freedom of movement to the Palestinians, provided that security prevails, and that is a big question mark. I am ultimately in favor of dismantling the security barrier that Israel was forced to establish 10 years ago. I think that it causes a lot of pain to the Palestinians, it causes pain also to Israelis, and causes pain to the environment, etc., etc. I am very much in favor of a bold move, international, of course. Israel cannot do it alone, to completely rehabilitate the refugee camps. I would like to see software engineers from Ramallah working in the high-tech companies of Tel Aviv. Those are things that we can do even in the absence of a political agreement.
Some will say, though, that the biggest challenge is not the diplomatic and not the high-level government officials, but what's happening within both societies right now. We, of course, went through two torturous and horrible murders on both sides, and what the Israeli society and the brimming of hate that has risen to the surface, perhaps that's the greatest challenge to any peace, whether it's non-reconciliation peace or peace with an agreement.
You may be right, but I believe that my propositions can enhance the coexistence. You know, I strongly believe that our endeavor, the communities, Jewish communities of Judea and Samaria, the so-called settlements, were never based, except for fringe elements, on bigotry, on hatred, on racism, on hate. Because we had a sense of mission. When you lose your sense of mission, all that is left is, you know, brutal hate and xenophobia. I think that if we manage to give back to the Israeli society the same sense of mission that we have in Judea and Samaria, if we stop being ashamed of making jokes of genuine patriotism, then that will, I think that the phenomena that we see of sheer hate are in part a result of the loss of a sense of mission by the Israeli society, of Zionist mission, and that the fact that we mocked every serious and decent show of patriotism, like raising the Israeli flag, like singing a tikva, etc., etc.
But what about the idea that blood is no different from, you know, a Palestinian person and a Jewish person, as we heard Rachel Frankel, the mother of Naftali Bennett, say as well? Where is the mission of leaders of the Yesha Council and, of course, other settlements? What kind of messages can they be conveying to besides patriotism, go beyond that?
I think that message is very loud and clear from our part. We never said anything different. But again, it's not in our society. I think that the settler society, to call it that way, is much less affected by those kinds of bigotry and racism that the general society in Israel. I think it's not a coincidence that this horrendous act that happened in Shuafat, the murder of Muhammad Abu Khder, was not done by settlers. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think that our society, because it didn't lose its sense of mission, has less bigotry and less hatred and less racism, except in fringe elements that, of course, we also have, as any society does.